Mics are going live.
Oh, it's kind of faster. Let's down the leaves.
Yeah, now I don't need it.
Yeah.
All those seats will go. All those seats for guys will go. Again.
We have this statute for the people that makes up sometimes, absolutely.
All right. Callie is gonna do it if we need it, but.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I tonight, Christmas time. So I've been. Yeah, we did all those stuff at school. I just thought, so not with you, I really, I know that's a short thing, $55. So for that, but I never sold that. I just did not.
You know, we have 6.
Next
I'm just good. Yep, we're good. Go ahead.
Call meeting to order. If we please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. I ask for special prayers for my father, who's 91, and he's in the hospital right now in critical condition. Thank you. Mr. President, yes. Would you kindly bring Gary, one of the request for approval to hire Gary Robards, Public Works Director, to the Constitution. So, and also Michael Russo, as electrical inspector. Yes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, so, Karen.
So, first of all, I want to publicly thank.
And turn the mic on, we can't hear back here.
Okay.
No.
First of all, I want to start by publicly thanking Scott Barber, who's our outgoing Public Works Director. Scott worked for us for 24 years. He's been great to work with. He is leaving very big shoes to fill. But I believe we have the right applicant in Gary Robar, who's currently a DPW superintendent. He's been superintendent for 2.5 years, but he's been with us for 19. He has been doing the job on an interim basis. And I'm asking the council to appoint Mr. Robar to the
So
position.
moved.
Second.
If I could, before you vote, I would like to, if possible, ask that we be able to pay Gary retroactive back to the day that was the first day Scott was not here,
Which was what?
which was the 2nd of February.
So moved.
Yeah.
So moved.
Hi, I'm gonna go around. Excuse me. Hi, everyone.
Is that part of the,
Go over here.
have to make a motion on that?
Yeah, just make a motion to add that.
Add retroactive to the second
Hi, how are you?
So it's amended motion.
amended motion.
Making a second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Right. Good, Gary, hey, Gary, welcome.
Okay, my second request is an authorization to hire Mike Rosso as our electrical inspector. Mike was an applicant, when we posted this position last March. He has over 40 years of experience as a municipal inspector. He's worked here on an interim basis on, 2 occasions, and he does have a good working relationship with Tony because they work together in Hopkinton.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Sorry.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations.
See you too.
Now we move on to the consent agenda, and we are moving to continue consent agenda item 8. One,
President,
yes.
motion to continue item 1B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. President, move to approve consent agenda 1A, C, and 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion.
Oh, do you want
I'd like to pull 2C and 3.
why would you like, oh,
Just to clarify, under 3, the approval of appropriation of payments of bills. I noticed that, I didn't see it, is under the American Rescue Plan funds. Charter Little League was allocated $5,000, and I haven't seen that come up yet.
Nope.
As payment.
Mr. President,
yes,
I believe that we removed that, and then we asked them if they wanted to, because they hadn't, come forth and asked for the $5,000. We asked them if they wanted to resubmit their request because of the fact that it was kind of lingering out there. So that's why it hasn't been on there.
Did they reapply for the grant? No,
No.
so it's still limbo. Okay. And then, 2C, question is for Talia. I noticed in your other meetings, you had a meeting with Bill Buckley of GFI. You discussed Richmond Commons. I was wondering how the discussion went, and Bill's a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Point of order,
Yeah.
Mr. President.
that's not on the agenda, and we really can't be discussing that.
Preemptively, but sit back down.
I mean, as part of the reports, I'd love to hear what you have to say, but we're not supposed to be sitting here setting the stage for that. That should have been on the agenda.
That's
But
fine.
the fact that you're off.
Again, how it doesn't change.
Yeah, no.
That's true. Okay, right, it's not on the agenda, it's not on the agenda. So
When can she
when it's on the agenda.
put it on the agenda?
Okay, so that being said, we need to revise our motion to,
For
the
the first,
consent agenda items.
with all said, I'd like to, approve consent agenda 1A, C, 2, 3, and 4.
All those in favor?
Okay. Sorry, just to clarify, so we already have that motion.
Right.
Counselor Kalasande made that motion. Counselor Wilcox seconded that motion, so that would be the motion we voted on. If you want to add the previous conversation we just had, we do need a motion for that, but the consent agenda is all set.
So moved.
And we need a
So we
second.
don't need it. You just leave it out. I don't.
You
You-
should have it, or you can send it outside the agenda. But we need a motion to add the conversation from the report to a future agenda, or you can send it outside the agenda.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
we
I'd
can
like-
send later,
like to make a motion to have that on the, future, next agenda, already discussed. So Buckley.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
I'm just gonna vote no, because she can put it on the agenda when he's ready.
I just wanted to clarify that because they said so moved that that wasn't necessarily going to appear on the agenda without it coming through the agenda process and or adding it this evening. Just for clarity.
so we have a motion and a second. How do you go?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Okay, now moving on to public forum. And, looks like we have a full house tonight. I'm kind of assuming that a number of people are here to talk about different topics other than what's on the agenda. So anyone who has a non-agenda item that they would like to get up and talk about, that would be good. 3 minutes. 3 seconds. Yeah, I'd like to hold the comments. Hold comments to 3 minutes.
That was a Freudian.
President Schumer, I have a meta comment about the agenda. I just wanted to thank you for including the revisit of the canvassing board appointment. And before we get into that, we'll talk later, but I want to suggest we get, as a group, either having you or having Ms. Lees revisit the procedure for that, before you move into the appointments or any motions on that.
Okay, yeah, we did discuss that
Okay.
procedure, so
Oh, thank you.
is there anyone else? Anyone from Cyberville?
We talking about water?
No, if you want to talk about water, come on up.
Go ahead, well, I think you.
Yes.
Talk about it in the
What is
context
on
of
the
the
agenda?
report.
Yeah.
What a bill is anyway.
Yeah, that's on the agenda to discuss, yeah.
Okay, so we'll hold it to then, and public forum is closed. Moving on to reports. Darren?
So you've already got 2 of my items. The third is the consideration of the resolution in support of the league priority.
Move to, support resolution.
Anything else to discuss?
I have discussion.
Okay,
And we need
we need a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Go ahead.
In fact, I had my list out to show the thing on the minute. It's not. Here it was.
Back here.
Thank you. Okay, so overall, I support the legislative priorities of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and they do have an impressive executive board and directors. I do have some concerns about their list. On page 5, enabling the offering of digital tax bill. While many older people are computer literate, there are many who are not. Some do not even have a computer. I fear that some residents will not pay their taxes and lose their homes because they are not aware that they are missing a tax payment. Or if they get contacted at a later date, they will have a big interest bill that they cannot afford. Any digital tax bill legislation should include an opting out provision.
I think it's being offered as an option, not as a standard practice.
As long as it's an option.
That's the way I understand it, is that there's an opt-out provision for
Okay,
mailing.
as long as there is.
Yep.
On page 5, municipal authority to regulate short-term rentals. I'm a native Rhode Islander and I vacation locally like many Rhode Islanders. The cost of additional fees from the municipality and other state fees has made the vacation price extremely high. We need to be careful that we do not drive business away from vacation rentals, since we would lose more than the hotel tax on the rental. We would lose taxes from all the businesses that would not have enough visitors. Number 3, on page 7, the tax cap exemptions for new housing units. My understanding is that Rhode Island state law currently limits the amount of increase for municipal taxes that taxpayers will experience in a year is an increase of 4% per year. The proposal would be to have a separate new tax cap exemption exclusively related to the development of new housing units. This looks like a way to get around the 4% tax cap. So how does this help taxpayers? Or am I missing something? So things I like. On page 7, elimination of state mandated tax exemptions. If the state wants those exemptions, then they should pay for them in full. And that goes along with my belief that if the General Assembly is going to make educational mandates, they should fund those expenses through the state budget.
The only comment that I have on the tax cap is I think that maybe if a town were to create say a giant housing development and it created a need for us to hire additional police officers, or if we were a town that had a fire department, we had to build another fire station or something like that.
Yep.
I think that is just creating another exemption for the town to be able to go over the
Over the
tax
4%.
cap for those reasons.
Well, so I wouldn't support it.
Like I said in the memo, you can, as a body, decide you're okay with it the way the sample is written. If you want to make changes as a body, you can do that. You can decide if you don't want to send any resolution at all. It's completely up to the council.
Well, it's under discussion still. The biggest thing, the biggest pet peeve with me is the mandates that come down from the General Assembly and they're unfunded. It's costing Charo, I estimated just real quick, probably well over $10 million. Now, some of them are good and some of them aren't. So in other words, the ones that aren't, we're not getting our bang for our buck, and we're getting taxed on mandates that we really don't need. So, you know, with that said, at the last omnibus meeting, we had 3 or 4 of our reps sitting there. And I did say to them, hey, look, you know what I mean? Like, we have our reps sitting right here. Could one of you please put in some legislation to give us some relief from the mandates, that any future mandates, the state of Rhode Island will pay for them and not just dump them in our lap. It's getting way too expensive. In the way our tax situation is, it was okay maybe 40, 50 years ago based on your home value. Now it's not working anymore, doing it that way. So with that being said, I agree with you 100%, Councilor Sheehan, and I've been advocating that for over 2 years now. Actually, way back, I advocated for that too, about the mandates. Too expensive, and you see what's happening to the taxes on your home. So I agree with you 100%. They have to be paid by the state.
So as a group, I mean, I would like us overall to find a way to support the resolution, but with amendment. If you agree that the things that I said make sense.
I do think that the consensus the 2 councilors have makes sense.
I like the way we do this and I would approve it as is. But if you want to remove something then I'll still approve it because I won't. If it's not there, it's not there. Just let us know what line specifically within the resolution on the last page you want to remove, and we can do it.
Well, I would like to add that it does say there's an opt-out provision for taxes, for digital taxes. And that we don't support that tax cap exemption for new housing areas.
Did you have any thoughts?
If you wanted, you could, on that tax exemption, it does say discretionary in the proposal. You could say at a town's sole and absolute discretion. So that's,
Okay,
you make that choice, and it's just you.
okay,
Nobody can influence that, whatever you decide, your absolute discretion.
I like that, that makes sense.
That language
Yeah.
would help.
yeah.
And
Yeah, you want to add?
did you want to put something in about the unfunded mandates?
Well, that's not in there. The only thing that's in there is the tax cap exemption.
It's not really.
Yeah,
The rest was,
attack what isn't there.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to amend that?
You have a-
yes,
Second,
Okay,
Just to
I'm gonna-
clarify. He can. Yeah, the current document in front of you doesn't reference those two concerns. So we could add the language in to the current resolution.
and then approve it next time?
Yeah, maybe we could do a draft. It doesn't. It's very general, so it doesn't address, I think, those concerns.
So we need a motion, we need to retract those motions and a motion to continue this to the next meeting with amendment.
Mr. President, I make a motion to put this on the next council agenda. And in the meantime, our solicitor coming up with the language for the new resolution.
second,
Mr. President, I think usually we have, like town clerk do that if she's comfortable. I don't know if that's something we should get that way versus having solicitor do it. Yeah, that's my only comment now.
She's loaded with work.
Yeah.
You know,
Wait,
I am at the time of
Okay.
election, so if we could
And
defer
that,
to
I
the
can
solicitor, I would
contact
appreciate that.
So
Yeah.
that being said, how do you vote?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
Awesome. Anything further, Karen?
The only other thing I want to say, is, I'd like to publicly congratulate the chief for getting inducted into the law enforcement hall of fame.
Perfect. That was out of the can.
Hiding in the back. You're up.
Chief, when do we see the unveiling of the bronze bust?
I would also like to take this little break in the opportunity here to ask everyone to welcome our new town solicitor person here.
those are used to lots of clapping, that doesn't usually. And see all these bodies in there.
The vegetables will be flying, I'm sure. So,
Chris, I'd like to say to him, like you said.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Chief,
Sir? So it's a full house tonight. No one parked on the grass or the lawn, right?
You know that.
Thank you. Perfect. So just a couple of things I wanted to share with you. In the meantime, when I had this posted on the agenda, a second scam happened. It's very similar to the first one. This happens a lot. Savvy people, educated people that have jobs get taken by people that are purporting to be someone else. They're very convincing. If you didn't initiate the contact, be suspicious of anyone telling you that you owe money. If there's any type of threat involved, in this instance, if it's a familiar name like PayPal, Amazon, how many people in the room use Amazon for any type of shopping or live with someone that does? So when someone calls and says they're with Amazon, you have so many orders, you're not sure which one you owe money for, and then maybe you call with your account. One resident was contacted by phone. And the area code was outside of the state, not familiar. But they were so convincing in the way they described it was a PayPal account in which someone had tried to defraud them. Ironically, the person calling was the fraudster, claiming a false fraud, but duped the person into then giving bank account information. When she said, well, my Chase bank account is linked to my PayPal account. So then gave a couple of things up that gave that person access to the account. The interesting link between these two scams, both of them eventually went to Bitcoin. Now, I don't have Bitcoin, but I know there are people in the room way more advanced in technology that probably have it or are familiar with it. One person was taken for $12,000. Another individual, it was an ongoing scam to have them think that someone else in the company had made an error and they were gonna make them whole through Bitcoin, but it was all taken out of their bank account. $70,000. What? In amounts of 15, 10, and I know it sounds impossible, but the fact is, smart people get taken advantage of. In a community like this, you let your guard down. People leave their keys in the car, they don't lock their car. They leave valuables in it. Listen, you've just fallen into a false sense of security, but there are people out there preying on the people that are trusted. And these people are not stupid, they're smart, educated people. I'm offering this as information to you to guard against. If someone reaches out to you by email or by phone and you don't know them and you didn't contact them initially, call the police first. Buy time, ask for 15 or 20 minutes, or I'll call you back in a day or so. Usually what happens is they go away. If they hear you calling the police, they don't come back. Or they get irritated, they get aggressive. They start to try to intimidate the person. If they're doing that, they are not legitimate. It's not an authentic company. People that are in business want to maintain clients, so they're not going to act like that. So that's that part. The second thing is our officers back on January 24th got a report of a B&E while the home was occupied. Most of these occur daytime when people are at work or away from the home. They'll look for homes that don't have garages and no vehicles in the driveway. They assume that it's safe to go in. Daytime, greatest chance of not being caught, not having a confrontation. This was an evening time when the homeowner was actually in the shower, heard somebody trying to force the door open. This is isolated. This is not a pattern you're going to see in the community. This person used to live at that address, hadn't been there at some time, has a lengthy criminal record. The reason I bring it up, the complainant called, threatened to call the police, called the police. By the time the police were on the way, this guy had already fled because he knew the police were on the way. Sergeant Lettieri was driving towards the address in the area of 500 Kingstown Road. And he sees a black utility vehicle, SUV, going in the opposite direction with Texas plates. When he gets to the house, the complainant said, black SUV, out-of-state plates. So he radios to another patrol car near the highway who happened to intercept this guy. Just great police work, astute, timely response, timely actions, observant, and they ended up getting the guy. He's got a number of, he's a career felon. Probation violator, you name it. Passive arrest, no problem, but just great work by those two officers. Officer Donahue was the one that actually stopped it around. That's all I do.
Okay, Lauren, you're up.
Okay, so first on my agenda is people have been asking about an update for the American Rescue Plan funds and where they sit. And so I have included the latest chart. And it's up to you for discussion and consideration. It was just for information as to the status.
I have no.
Okay.
Well, I have something. I know there's money on here for Richmond Elementary School to have security. So I recommend we hold on paying any more money for things there.
Sorry to interrupt. I actually have that same concern. And I reached out to Gina, and the project has gone forward, and even with the bond, that we're not gonna see, if we get them, we're not gonna see new schools till like 27. Don't quote me on that, please. But I had that same concern. I said, can we pause this project? Can we stay it until we figure out what's going on with the bond? And she reached out back and said, the project's completed. We're just waiting on invoicing. So project's done, just waiting for it to be,
Okay.
yeah. But I do think it'd be worthwhile to have a discussion at some point. If it's not noticed enough for it tonight, then we can hold, but I think it'd be worthwhile to discuss as a group what we want to do with the, 116 that's left.
Want to put it on the agenda? Okay, Laura?
Okay. The next item is an amendment to the water ordinance for the debt service associated with the chlorination system. The bond was authorized at the financial town meeting in June of 2021. And it is $300,000 out of the Water Enterprise Fund. The resolution does not allow for general obligation bonds, which means it would be an obligation of the total town, that it was approved to be out of the water fund. With that being said, in order to fund it, I asked for as straightforward as an approach as we could. It's a 10-year bond. The debt service is about $23,500. It has not, the rate has not been set. I have to provide Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank with the new ordinance for them to consider it, and a new budget from the water fund for them to consider allowing the loan to go through. They need a reserve, which means they need to see a surplus of 125% of the debt service in our water fund budget. And as a result, I am asking for the increase of $75 per year per customer for the next 10 years. And in the last year or two, the finance department will review to see if it'll be a lower amount. So if we have more customers, if they come on at year 8, they'll be billed the $75 for, years 8, 9, and 10. We might be able to make up some of the debt service and pay it off a little bit earlier. So it's basically every customer is $75 for each year for 10 years.
So, Laura, is this something we could augment with some American Recovery Plan money? So to lessen the impact?
I have to think about that.
But didn't we?
I
didn't we
don't
allocate
believe-
money for it already?
No, the water line that came in from the roundabout to the town hall and is part of
Oh.
American Rescue.
Okay.
But to pay down the water debt, not specifically, could be. I will have to, it can't be that specific. You can't take the American Rescue money and pay down the debt.
But if we use it to, say, just hypothetically, you said the project is $300,000. Say we took 100,000 American Recovery Plan money and put it towards that.
So the interesting thing about the water bond is that it's through Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. It's actually a $300,000 bond, and it is offering us $100,000 in principal forgiveness. So the debt comes out to be like $235,000 with the principal reduction, which is why it's only $23,000, not $30,000 a year.
Which, Laura, will be completely covered by the users of the water system.
That was the way the resolution at the FTM was presented and approved, that it is the water customers or the water fund that would pay for it.
Okay, so in order to make it kosher with the bonding, you need $75 more per user on the system in order to get the money you need in reserve.
Correct. A little different than that, I need to cover the debt service, which is about $23,500 a year.
Okay,
We have 305 customers. I quickly divided it, and without pennies, it's $75.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that. the $75 increase per user.
Okay,
We
so
have to
actually,
do a motion to advertise it for public hearing.
right,
Put it on
so.
public hearing.
Correct. So what it is the discussion, if you're would like to consider it, we would have to put it out for a date for public hearing to approve it.
All right, move to, bring it to a public hearing.
Should probably remove your first motion.
Did you second? Do you have a second?
Back in a second.
Yeah,
I did,
back.
I did that.
I didn't see a second.
The
No.
motion is to, set a public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We make it in
Thank
March,
you all.
the 1st of March.
Yeah, we don't have any more meetings in February.
Right, so I just want to bring it to the 1st of March so that I can get the
Yeah.
loan going.
That's an early meeting.
Okay, next.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a town planners report. Yeah.
Good evening, council. Good evening, members of the public. So I have drafted a brief update on two programs. One is the PL 566 program and the other is the EWP, which stands for Emergency Watershed Protection. So the PL 566 program is a program that the town is already a co-sponsor of. This is something that has been in the works for some time. I reached out to Daryl Moore, who is the local contact in relation to the program, to see where we were in the pipeline of that process. Because when I attended a scoping meeting in January of last year, they said it would take about 2 years to come up with a plan, 2 years to actually design it, and then 2 years to actually construct it. So when I reached out to Mr. Moore, he explained that there had been a couple of things that had delayed the rollout of the plan. The first is that there have been more communities that have signed on as sponsors. So naturally, the size of the project itself has grown because we're now incorporating other communities. This is, I think, largely beneficial because we're looking at the watershed holistically. It's not as though it's just Richmond that's participating in it, or just Hopkinton, or just Westerly. We're looking at the entirety of all of these connected systems. But that does in turn make it a little bit more complicated and a little bit longer because now we have to take into account all of the questions and concerns and thoughts of the communities that have now joined. Because of the size of the watershed, the design and implementation stages will take longer to complete. The NRCS is still, and this is a quote from Mr. Moore, still pushing to keep the project expedited and not allow it to drag out. And they prospectively think that there will be the plan available either late summer or early fall. Of course, once we have the plan, then it's going to be a lot of review, a lot of consensus building between communities. There might not be projects that are of interest to communities that are participating. So it's still going to be an ongoing process. Because of the time that it has taken for the PL 566 program to actually take shape, Mr. Moore recommended another program to me that is also administered by the NRCS, which is called the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. So this is, it's unique in that there doesn't have to be a federal or state disaster declaration. The NRCS state conservationist can declare what's called a local watershed emergency to start the process. Essentially, the main thrust of this program is that the NRCS will purchase permanent easements to restore floodplains. And what that actually translates to in practice is often purchasing private property owners' homes and removing or demolishing the home and restoring what had initially been there prior to the construction of the home. They will offer fair market value. They have their own appraiser who comes and will look at the home and make determination on what they think the fair market value of that home would be. There are some elements to the program that can make it less palatable than just hearing at face value, oh, we'll give you your fair market value for your house and you can just go and do something else. The program does not, it doesn't provide funding to assist parties who have received funds to, augment that. So if, say, your house is worth $250,000, but there aren't any properties in your community that are worth 200, or that you can spend $250,000 to purchase, they're not going to give you the extra $50,000 or the extra $25,000 that you might need to purchase a home in the price range available in the community. So they don't do that. They don't prospect for land. So one of the things is you can pick up the house and move it somewhere else, but they're not involved in finding a better location for the home. And as such, the participation in this program might be limited. It might not be entirely palatable to everyone because people have attachments to their homes. They might not necessarily want to just accept, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing and I have to now find a new place to live. And, but it is a program that the town can avail itself of. There are other programs which I am not as well versed on as of yet, but I can look into things further. As you would note from the final portion of my memo, I said I'd welcome the opportunity to address any specific questions that you have at a future date, or to answer additional questions about the specific programs or just general programs, and also to apply for funding or assistance from other programs if the council as a body decides that that's a directive that you would like to give to me. So I can speak a little bit more about these programs if you'd like, but if you want to hear from members of the public, that would be fine as well.
Tell you, when I called Gina Fuller.
Yeah.
And,
You called me yesterday.
yeah. And, she was actually willing to come to make a presentation tonight. So I think it would behoove us to maybe have her come down, at, maybe the next council meeting.
Yeah. I'll
And have
just,
her, because the things have changed.
Yeah.
Talking with her too, she's doing a fly-in to Washington,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of money out there that, she says is still floating around. And it's just a matter of making the connections with, 3, legislators there, Jack Reed, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Mr., Congressman Magazino. So, with that said, it could actually be more money that we could get with this. So it would be really, beneficial for the town, because when she was here, it was spring of 2021 that she addressed the council. So, she's willing to come down. Things have changed a little bit. The programs have gotten better. The EWP program, where now they're offering money to buy you out. And especially if somebody is constantly always getting flooded. Just to say goodbye, to that piece of property and have the ability to be bought out and take that money and move, I think would be, a saving place to a lot of people down in the Valley Lodge, area. And I know there's a lot of people here, so we can hear, from some of the folks and hear what they have to say about it.
I'm just saying to dovetail with that, I did print, so after, you spoke with Gina called me and we discussed the program, and she again offered that she would be willing to come to a town council meeting, or I actually suggested that it might be better to have it at a separate meeting, so the focus of that meeting can be these specific programs. She said that Daryl, who's Mr. Moore, who is the point of contact for PL 566, and the rest of the staff at NRCS are available to answer any questions anyone has about the program at this point. And she wanted me to encourage the council and any members of the public to send questions to me that I can then transmit to them, so they can be prepared to answer, a whole litany of questions, them being NRCS and the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District, which Gina works for. She also said that the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District will help host community programs in relation to flooding issues. So they're going to be a great resource for us going forward, as will the NRCS.
Okay, so I think what we'd like to do, what I'd like to get is a motion to have a special meeting regarding all of this. So I don't know if anybody would like to make that motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to hold a special meeting with Gina Fuller and maybe 1 or 2 of her associates to make a presentation at a special meeting to the town council and to the residents of Valley Lodge.
I can work with her to set up a date.
You want to second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Tony. That's informative.
Yeah, good job, Talia.
Thank you.
Good job.
There's some people, I think, you want to talk about.
Oh, and I would say that if there are members of the public who do have questions
Oh, yeah, I do remember.
or who have concerns about
Right.
flooding, you can always send emails to me. My email is townplanner@richmondri.com. I would generally say that anytime you are impacted by a storm, the best thing that you can do is capture as much information about the impacts that you have had on you as you can. That means taking pictures, that means writing things down, that means just keeping track of what has happened to you in relation to the storm, because all of that information is very, very valuable, and can help assist with getting more funding for the state in relation to storms. So for example, one of the things that I've been telling people who have been impacted is to fill out this form that is on the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency website. It's for specific dates when storm events have happened. It's a not particularly difficult or complex form to fill out, but if you have questions about it, you can contact my office and I can try and assist you as best I can. But it is just another way for the state to then transmit information to the federal government saying, hey, we've been impacted by this. Can you help us with that? So any information that you can collect in relation to these storms and their impacts will ultimately be very beneficial for yourselves potentially and also for the community at large.
Thank you.
Dennis wanted.
So I wanted to invite people, try and keep it brief because we've got a heavy schedule. I know some people came here to talk about water tonight, so I invite you to come up and.
I'd like to say something.
Sure, Dennis, please.
Evening, everyone. Evening. My name is Dennis McGinnity. I live on KG Ranch Road. A while back when Mr. Oppenheimer was on the board here, he used to call my land McGinnity Lake. There was a reason for that. I don't know how many people are here from Valley Lodge or hear about water, but I thought I'd talk to the town council and let them know, as I've let other people in the town know. 2010, my house and the houses around me and the houses in Valley Lodge were all, or most of them were damaged by water. The ones that weren't damaged were because they were up high and those people couldn't get out to go to work. So everybody everyone was hurt by that storm, 2010. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money repairing my home. I had 6 feet of water in my house. I had to leave for 3.5 months, which is, if you think about it, if town council thinks about it, and just picture your own home with 6.5 feet of water in it, and you can't live there. You have to go somewhere with your children and anybody else in the house. It's a pretty horrible thing. And it doesn't matter. I know there's people in Valley Lodge had a foot of water, or 2 feet of water, or 3 feet of water. That's just as bad as 6 feet. When your house is damaged, we don't want to be told that we can buy our house, or someone can buy our houses after we've lived there for many years. We don't want to be told that we can move, we can give you whatever value they place on it, and you can move, you can go away. But we don't want to do that. A lot of us don't want to do that. We want to live there. The thing that I'm facing right now is with the storms that we had in the past couple of weeks. The water that rose in my property and came up toward my house was less than 20 feet away, 25 feet away. It was to a point where public works people were checking every day to see how far the water was and what it was doing. And I'm sure it was happening in Valley Lodge. I talked to people down there who feel the same way. Mitigation. If you've ever read the
word and looked it up and see what it means, and there are 3 or 4 different kinds of mitigation. What a lot of us are looking at is how can we make our properties whole? How do we make the property protected from these storms that are coming? And mark my word, they're coming. They're coming. Global warming is here and the waters are rising, more storms are coming. And we're gonna get more of the same type of thing. So we need mitigation now. We need people to step in and protect our properties. We need to do something. From 2010, the town has tried to do certain things to keep the water from rushing from the east side of the town of KG Ranch Road into properties where I live and properties in Valley Lodge. And none of them have come to any fruition, not through the town's fault, but not trying. But people in Valley Lodge and myself, we'd like to know what is the town going to do now? What are they going to do for the taxpayer? Am I talking too long?
No, yeah, I just, yeah, you've gone over the 3 minutes, but I wanted to respond. Again, I'll probably get hammered on social media for bringing up my personal experiences, but I grew up in East Greenwich in a home where every time it rained, we get between 1 and 3 feet of water, and it was a high-end home, and we flooded out. And after years and years, the town was able to get the Army Corps of Engineers in to put 2 gigantic culvert pipes in to pipe all the water out of the neighborhood, and there was never another flood. I'm wondering how we would, if we would be able to contact our state representation to see if anything can be done to bring the Army Corps of Engineers in to see what can be done.
That's what they did last time.
Mr. McGinney,
They had the Army Corps of Engineers, they had fire departments, they had public works.
And they did nothing.
They were pumping water almost 3/4 of a mile to Wood River to get the water out of that area.
Mr. McGinney, under that PL 566 program, when it was discussed in 2021, they understand that a
Excuse
lot.
me, Mike, this is about the 5th time that you've avoided asking the president to speak, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Mr. President.
Let me continue for a second, then I'll go
Yeah,
down.
okay.
The town was trying to do something about that water that was affecting all of us. 140 houses in there, houses on KG Ranch Road, all taxpayers and voters waiting for something to happen. We waited 14 years for something to happen to help us, to say we're going to be protected if this ever happens again. Well, we all know what happened this past week and a half. And it's going to happen again. You know, and we need help. We need mitigation before the tragedy, not after the tragedy.
Right.
We know FEMA will come, and we know the Red Cross will come, and we know there's other organizations, but it's after.
Totally disrupting your life and expensive to boot. I'm just wondering what happened with the Army Corps of Engineers. So I'm wondering, Karen, if we could find out where that all went, whatever happened to all of that.
I think there's literally nowhere to put the water. If you put it in the Wood River, it's gonna flood someone else's house. You're just moving the problem, and I believe there's some sort of regulation that only allows you to do that in an emergency.
Is the water table super low there? I mean, shallow or?
We can dig that out.
They pumped the water down to the Wood River, and they had gotten permission from the government to do that because it was an emergency.
Yeah, pumping's not a solution. So,
That's what needed to be done because we're in a bowl.
right,
There's no place for
yeah,
it low.
I have friends that live over.
So I'm asking you on behalf of Valley Lodge people, on behalf of myself and whatnot.
I think that we can pursue this further and look into it. That's all I can say. I don't know enough.
That's what we need to hear. That makes us on the road to recovery, on the road to what's going to happen. And I've said my say. Thank you very much. I would like to say one more thing. This is an outstanding, good-looking group of people. Not everybody,
Oh,
but I'm not gonna point you out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anyone else going once? Anyone online? Yes.
One done now.
Okay, so moving on to appointments and resignation.
President.
Yeah,
Motion to accept the resignation of David Burns.
Second.
Good for Red.
any, okay. And how do you vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Wait, second. Yeah, go ahead.
Motion to approve Peter Burton for the appointment of the planning board for term ending January 35th, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Is Mr. Burton here?
Yes.
Discussions?
You want to stand up and just introduce yourself
Sit
briefly?
on the hot seat for a second.
Pete Burton, Richmond, Rhode Island.
Nice to see you again.
Anything that you want to tell us that we don't already know?
So just I'm willing to volunteer. There's another meeting and the planning board. I went to a few meetings and I was really impressed by the camaraderie with the people that were there. That was a really good group of people and I like to work, numbers and so it seems like a good fit and I would really love to help.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Motion to accept the resignation of Tim Michaud, from as an alternate member, of the Canvassing Authority with regret.
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion to accept or approve Kristen Chambers for appointment to the Richmond, Rhode Island 250th Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
I have a quick
Oh,
question.
sure, go ahead.
Do we have a expiration date of the appointment?
No, there's
It's
no,
just like as needed
It's until the end of
until the
the.
celebration?
Until the
Okay,
party.
until the party.
Awesome.
You ready to rock and roll, Kristen? Cool.
There she is.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Welcome.
Great. Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to approve Lucy Fleet, accept the resignation of Lucy Fleet from the dog park. Apologies.
Second.
With regret.
Second.
Counselor Paul, seconded.
Okay, how do you vote?
Hi.
Aye.
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 Okay, now moving on to item 6. I was contacted by the Democratic Town Committee and advised that I had by accident, handled the request for appointments to the Richmond Canvassing Authority incorrectly. So now I'd like to correct that. And how I'm hoping that it will work. I'm hoping that we will have each person get up and speak for a few minutes of why they feel they should be on the canvassing committee, and then then I will make appointment and then we'll vote. That's apparently how I was supposed to do it.
Well, do we have to pull the motion, you know what I mean, from for people in the majority?
You have to, as I understood it from the letter, if the letter's correct, I'll assume it is, that
I have to.
instead of the nomination coming from the president, it came from Mr. Colasante, should have come from the president. The statute is explicit and clear. That person who received that appointment, who was that person?
Very true. Yeah.
Is he on the agenda for appointment this evening?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so as long as he's on for appointment this evening, it should be redone and the nomination should come from the president, if that's who you're going to nominate.
I'd like to hear from each respondent first. I'd like to invite Ray up first and then Pam Rollins.
Mr. President, we don't have to go back and pull the original motion and rescind.
I don't think so,
You don't
because
think so?
that's a nullity, because the statute says the nomination.
That will do it. That
So I would say
will
that's,
nullify.
that would be a legal nullity, so
Mhm.
okay, choose it. It didn't happen. But you're now going to appoint that person today. The nomination for people should come from the president, seconded by any single member. Then you'll take your vote.
Unfortunately, it was never stated from the previous solicitor that we were doing it erroneously.
Mr. President, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I did point it out, and I did ask counsel, and I read the statute at the last meeting. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but I did bring it to your attention. Thank you.
If I could just further clarify, Mr. Pouliot is not serving currently. Mr. Michaud is still in that place because whoever fills this term this evening doesn't begin until after 2/29. Because Mr. Michaud is still in the place and Mr. Pouliot was filling that place. So just to clarify that. It wasn't a rescinding of an appointment because the appointment hasn't happened yet.
I lost my place on my agenda here. I'm not using a computer tonight because my eyes are killing me. So I'd like to invite Ray up first, Pamela up second, Chris Kona third, and Alexis Turner up as fourth speaker. Hi, Ray.
Ray Pouliot, Richmond resident. The Richmond Republican Town Committee asked me to fill in this position, and I agreed to it. I have experience, over 30 years of public service, dealing with addressing national chamber address. So I'm very familiar with the type of stuff that the Board of Chambers does.
You were a postmaster, correct?
Yes. Yes. And I've been retired since 2018, so I have the time to do it.
Okay.
Mr. President, I have one quick question. I understand it's your schedule. You know what we have time for, we obviously
Right.
don't, but you were appointed to other boards and then shortly thereafter said you didn't have the time. So I appreciate that you're coming back.
No, I did
and
not
you
say
didn't have
I
the time, but I just
didn't.
want to make sure, sorry, I just want to finish my question. I just want to make sure that, you're in now, you have the time, good to go.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next I invite, is it Pam? Pamela to come up and,
Thank you. I'm Pamela Rollins from Richmond, and as you may remember, I sent the five of you a short email talking about my background and my interests, and I'll just reiterate that now. Thank you for those of you that gave me a positive response to my email. For the last 3.5 years, I've been working with the town clerk, the previous town clerk, and with Erin. Working in the polls either as a supervisor checking people in or as a moderator that was responsible for the polling location. And, I think I've worked every election since that time. And I've come to really appreciate the tight ship that Erin runs. It's a solid, good process. And, I've been involved in this process for a long time. I've been the alternate for a year. And so I've observed how the board works. I've gone to all the trainings and including Board of Canvassers trainings in the last year. So, at the time, I felt like that was just being a full member is the next step for me since I've been an alternate and since I've been working all the elections. So, if you choose to appoint me, that would be great. I'd be honored. I'll still be functioning as an alternate if you choose a different person. And I will continue to support Erin and the great work that she does. So thank you for hearing me.
well, I appreciate your service to the town and thanks for applying.
Thank you.
Next is, Kona.
Thank you. Chris Stoner, Richmond. I think democracy is what makes America great. I think it's important that the people who live in Richmond have an opportunity to vote fairly and have their voices heard. The Richmond Canvassing Authority has a small but important part to play in this, and I think it's a place where I can help to contribute to the town, and I'd love to volunteer to help in that capacity. While I'm a Democrat, I think it'd be my important to make sure that everyone gets represented fairly, whether they're registered as Republican, Democrat, or.
Thank you. Thank you. Lastly, if I could see Alexis.
Hi, I'm Alexis Turner of Richmond, Rhode Island. Back in 2020, I got to work the election and seeing everyone come in and be excited to vote and wanting to vote and the ease of the process and how well that was run just made me realize that the cornerstone of everyone having a say in it. So while I may not have some of the experience that we're lucky to see in Pamela, I would love to be considered as an alternate and get to know the process and really educate myself on how that goes so that all Richmond residents have the opportunity to have their voice heard in free and fair elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate everybody applying. I appreciate you giving your background, and my appointment or my nomination is going to be right way up.
Second.
Second, and now let's read some discussion.
So, Aaron, if you move correctly, there's 3 members of this board. They have to be 1 or 2 Republicans and a Democrat, 2 Democrats and a Republican. What's the mix? Because
They have to be bipartisan.
they have to be completely bipartisan.
So-
I get that. So if we pull Mr. Pouliot and he becomes a full member, then we still have
We still have bipartisanship because we would have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat.
okay, and Pamela Rohan is the,
She's the alternate Democrat currently.
and we're only looking for 1 person.
We're looking for 1 person.
Okay.
1 full person at this time. The previous resignation we can't act on at this time of the Republican. However,
Just to be sure.
correct. And should you have appointed Pamela, there would have, or nominated Pamela, this isn't finished yet, there would be more action this evening because she'd be moving up. And the agenda does reflect your ability to do that.
Yeah. Thank
you. Anyone else?
I prefer Pamela due to her experience, so I'll be voting no to try to get her in.
Okay, so discussion that being had, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 No.
No.
Well, Ray, you're still.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have
Mr. President, move to approve in accordance with section 42-46-6. Review, discuss, and take action on the following. I'd like to approve 1A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. As long as all the appropriate
You just make them subject to licensing fees. That is the only pending
Yes.
item.
subject to license.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on to new business.
Mr. President, move to move the meeting from May 7th, the town council meeting, to May 8th due to the charitable bond referendum
Second.
conflict.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. President, move to reschedule the second budget public hearing to May 8th, 2024 due to the charitable bond referendum conflict.
Second.
All those Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. President, move to consider the scheduling of a budget workshop on April 10th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Discussion and consideration and request from the Wood Pawcatuck Watershed Association regarding the replacement of a culvert on Hillsdale Road. Is there someone that can speak for that?
Good evening, Mr. President.
Hi.
Councilmember, I'm Chris Fox, the Executive Director for the Wood Pawcatuck Watershed Association. I provided you a pretty thorough prep packet. Do you want me to give you a rehash of that in a briefer form, or would you rather just ask questions?
It is with a good Cliff Note version.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do my best. Bear with me, I just got off a plane 16 hours back from an island off the coast of Norway. I haven't had a proper night's sleep yet, so not in my top form, so I'm gonna stick to the script. We're obviously a local nonprofit. We have 40 years of experience in watershed management and education. Back in 2010, as Dennis was recalling, when we had the great flood, it was just coincidence that I worked on behalf of the town of Richmond to remove the lower Shannon Falls Dam, which helped improve flooding conditions in the village shed. And with that trust, the Watershed Association provided the town with a turnkey project, which required no funding from the town and minimal investment of time by the town staff. In more recent years, our organization has been assisting watershed towns with flood planning and prevention. And this included partnering with the town of Richmond and all other watershed towns to produce the Wood Pawcatuck Flood Resiliency Management Plan. This plan inventoried every bridge, dam, and culvert in the entire 300 square mile watershed. It was quite an undertaking, and we identified any deficiencies in any of those structures. Most recently, the Wood Pawcatuck Watershed Association, Rhode Island Nature Conservancy, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management partnered on a cold water stream restoration plan. The various plans completed throughout the years ranked the Beaver River culvert on Hillsdale Road as having a significant negative impact on flooding, wildlife habitat, and water quality. Our cold water stream restoration grant can provide additional funding to implement projects identified in our companion cold water stream restoration plan, which is nearly complete. The partners have ranked replacing the undersized Hillsdale culvert over the Beaver River as our top priority. And in the coming weeks, I have to prepare another funding proposal for additional funding, which is why it's crucial, and I'm thankful that you folks were able to accommodate me today. So Wood Pawcatuck would like your authorization tonight to secure that additional funding to replace the culvert. And in order for me to advocate for this funding, we would also need your approval for Wood Pawcatuck to oversee the design, permitting, and construction of the proposed new culvert. I've got about 1,000 points of George Bush light here. If you want, I'll bang through those. If not, you can start asking questions now.
I think we start asking questions. Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Mr. Fox, we discussed the PL 566 program earlier. And in that same meeting in 21 by Gina Fuller, she mentioned that the monies can also be used to repair or replace culverts. And I think it was Mr. McGivney, he actually asked Ms. Fuller if it could be used anywhere in town, these monies, and she said yes. So are you open to looking into getting some grant money through that program, which would be a great win for the town of Richmond, the taxpayers of Richmond, where we wouldn't have to expend tax money to repair these culverts on both those roads, because of that program will pay for it.
So just a couple clarifications. I'm not an expert on PL 566. However, I was alongside with Gina in bringing that opportunity to the town of Richmond. My understanding, the culvert component of PL 566 does have a match requirement for the town. The funding source that I would be pursuing has no match requirement for the town. So that would be reason number one not to wait for PL 566 for that. Another reason would be the way the PL 566 program works nationally. It's kind of like you have a square hole. I mean, you're trying to fit a lot of different pieces through that hole. What PL 566 will come back with for the town of Richmond as well as the other towns. And what they determined is the best solution for your flooding problems based on a culvert, based on a dam, based on a bridge. We have option A, we have option B, even though there might be a suite of, A through Z of options. A and B are the only ones that meet that cost benefit analysis, and the town will have an opportunity to decide whether they can agree with A and B, which may not be the case. I can almost assure you, PL 566 is gonna say, option A for Valley Lodges, we're gonna buy all the houses and everyone's gonna move out. And just based on what I'm hearing tonight, I don't think that's gonna be an option that the town wants to select. So then you would only be left with B. If B is not palatable, they'd have to go project. So what I'm proposing here is one, construction in the next 2 years, project complete. It's also no funding requirement whatsoever. And it also opens the door potentially for other projects in the town that are not as high of a priority on our cold water stream restoration list. But as an example, I saw on the agenda, as we all know, the ongoing flooding issues up on Tug Hollow. That's actually on our list. But that's a slightly more difficult sell to you. While it would still be no match requirement, we'll do the project for you. We'll give the structure to you at no charge when the project is done. That one is going to include addressing the core problem, which is not the culvert, it's actually the dam next to the culvert. So that would have to be a combined project of where you're going to need to alter that dam and also implement a new culvert at the same time.
So you would, Mr. President, so you'd be working with our DPW
Yes.
on this, and that would cover all the engineering and materials and installation. and whatnot.
In essence, when I say, excuse me, turnkey project, that allows for the town to be as involved or uninvolved as the town so chooses. So in designating staff members tonight to participate in the planning process, as needed, those staffers can be, removed, can back down, can step up depending on what phase of the project we're in, what kind of level of consultation they want to have in the project. But I would imagine, key people would definitely be DPW director. And certainly if the town wanted to QA/QC our engineering, who we're going to be hiring Fuss and O'Neill, it would probably be at the town's expense, not the grant's expense, to pay an engineer to come in and look over those plans, in the absence of the town having an on-staff engineer.
I think that perhaps the DPW director and Talia, the town planner, would be a good team to have on this. How do you feel about that?
Mr. President,
Yes,
motion to authorize the WPWA to pursue funding for the culvert, replacement. I'm gonna handle the second motion.
a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. President,
Yes,
second motion, approval for the WPWA to serve as project administrator on behalf of the town of Richmond.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Lastly,
Mr. President, I'd like to appoint the town staff of Talia and Mr. Robar, who is our new director of the DPW, to work with these folks.
all those in favor? Aye.
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 Awesome. Now I'm gonna ask for a break to use the facility. It says.
Is that a
By motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. to take 5
Okay,
minutes.
second.
All right, thank you.
Aye.
Yeah, I told him. Yeah, if he wants some, I'll give it to
Okay, so getting back to, new business. I'd like to have a discussion tonight regarding the three options we've been presented regarding, new schools or school repairs. I'd like to make a short few statements, and then I'm gonna ask each counselor, starting with, Vice President Hussaini, and then going around the table, each counselor to make some remarks, and, so I will start. You notice I have my Charahoe green shirt on tonight. I am a fan of the Charahoe School. My two daughters went to the Charahoe schools. I've had unofficial tours of some of the school buildings. I've heard and spoke to former maintenance people and current maintenance people at the school. I'm familiar with building maintenance. I worked for Aramark, Clinical Technical Services for 8 years, and part of my job at different facilities was facility maintenance, facility management. I managed hospital maintenance staff, parking staff, the trades, clinical engineers. So I have a background, and I'm not speaking from opinions alone or just because I don't want to spend money. We have a legacy to leave our children, and part of that legacy is the public education that they receive. But the other part of that legacy is not to get our society so deeply in debt that these children of ours are locked in. They're yoked to work their entire lives, paying taxes that grow and grow and grow. Our economy in this country is shrinking, and our public debt is growing at an alarming rate. The federal government is in debt over $32 trillion with no intention on paying it back. They are not making anything but the interest payments on that debt. I heard on the two news sources today that we're giving money, ungodly amount of money, to the Ukraine. And the generals are going out and buying Bentleys with the money rather than the money going to the military. This country is a horrible steward of our money. Many people in this room are approaching retirement. I'm approaching retirement soon. I'm petrified if our property taxes go up substantially. Now, on a municipal level, nothing to do with the school, but it does have to do with the school. This town has a number of issues. One issue is we have a DPW building that is falling apart. It's in abysmal shape. We have a police department that resides in an old credit union. We have a town hall that was built on the cheap and needs some work. We have roads that people have emailed me, phoned me, texted me. They drive down the center of these roads because they're so crowded and so bad that it beats their cars to death. And something that a lot of people haven't considered, a lot of people haven't thought about, the town has 2 very large lawsuits. And if either one of those lawsuits is settled or is decided in the favor of the complainant, this town will see a substantial tax increase. Though both of those court cases are active court cases, I can't go into too much detail because it would be a violation. However, those are looming over the town's head. If we assume a bond for the schools, it will push we're paying nearly 80% of our taxes in town currently towards running our school system. And again, it's an excellent school system. I personally would like to see an outside third-party audit for that school system. But regarding the new schools, we have three options. We've been given three options. Been given the option of $150 million for 3 new elementary schools. We've been given the option to do extensive renovations and maintenance, and we've been given an option to just do the repairs. I lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens.
It'll get old.
3 options.
I am option.
3 options.
No, it was before that. If we were to go with option A, which is the new schools, $150 million. First of all, that's an estimate. I have some slides. I'm sorry, I've been up since 5 a.m. I have some slides that I'm gonna ask Aaron to put up just to show the towns that have already undertaken what we are doing. These slides were shown at last night's Hopkinton Town Council meeting, and they show the cost overruns for each of the towns that have already embarked on new schools.
Not each of them, it's only some of them.
Okay,
And they're
each that have had an overrun,
Point of order, we don't usually allow the public to speak out.
right?
My apologies,
You'll have a chance.
I said I'm sorry.
Thank you. So we've got this right here. We've got, the cost overruns, and then the other, just gives the actual numerical amounts. Do you have that second slide? Or did that not go through?
Yep.
Okay, there we are. So my concern is 150 million becomes 190 million. Not only that, Richmond School is the last school to be replaced, according to what I've heard, although nothing's concrete yet. We're the last school to be replaced. By then, the costs will have skyrocketed even more so. We had a year and a half, 2 years of double-digit inflation. Our interest rates are the highest they've ever been right now, the highest that they've been in a long time, since maybe 2008. I feel that we're just getting in too deep. The legacy we leave our children should not be an enormous $1 trillion debt. When you take out a loan, you pay it back. You only take out a loan in an emergency or for something that is so absolutely worthwhile that it goes beyond compare. I understand the problems that are going on at the various school buildings, water in the basement, 2 electrical outlets in rooms, roof problems, drainage problems, and so on. I am fully aware of all of that. Those are repair me things, not replace me things. If you have water in your basement, you don't build a new house next to it. You repair the water in the basement, and so on. I oversee 4 antiquated properties. One was built in 1774. When I took over maintenance at this property in 2005, that property had 1 outlet and knob and tube wiring throughout. These are repair me things again. These are not knock it down and build new. We currently, as a town, own Richmond Elementary School. I don't want to give it up. I think there are other alternatives. I used a term, and it was put out on social media, I think this morning. I said that it will paralyze the town, and I'm going to explain that statement because it sounds like hyperbole. Right now, the school makes up 80% of our budget. When all of this is said and done, when we pass the new school budget, when we pass the building funds, we'll be approaching 90% of our town's budget. We'll be approaching the state of Rhode Island to increase our taxes by over 4%. And we'll be binding the town. Karen won't be able to engage in any major projects. If we have a major disaster, if we have a major project in town, we'll have to go for another tax increase. driving taxes even higher. I, retiring in 2027, will not be able to afford to live in my home anymore if the taxes go up that way. Then if we lose one of the lawsuits or we settle one of the lawsuits and it reduces the town's revenue from one of the largest taxpayers in the town, it will further paralyze us and burden the homeowners and burden the elderly in this town and the people who don't have dual income professional incomes in their home. So I do not support the building of a new school. I support option B or C, something in the middle perhaps, where we pay as we go and we address things and we renovate things. The building we have across the street is beautiful. It's solid. It's a classic, and it can be made fully functional. Just my observation driving around the building, the downspouts all come down the side of the building, right into the parking lot, right at the gap where the road, the asphalt and the foundation of the building go. All the water goes down that gap and into the basement. It would be an easy pipe the drainage things away, and I don't think we'd have much more water in the basement. I'm not a professional, but I put money on it. That being said, like I said, I do not support the new schools. I support somewhere between B and C. And I asked Vice President Nassani.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
So this was a news flash to me because I didn't know that I was going to be speaking on this. So here it is off of the cuff. Everybody likes a new shiny building. Who doesn't? But planning and putting information out and doing your due diligence for a project this size needs to be done well in advance of coming to the people for asking them for $150 million. I'm in the HVAC business, and the cost of materials, it's not coming down. The delay of materials is not shortening. The lack of labor is not going to go away. There are so many things that are basically piled up against us. As much as I would love to see a new school, I personally, I don't see it. That's my opinion, and only my opinion. But the reality is that I don't believe Gina's done a good job for whatever it is that she's prepared. But there needs, personally, my opinion is that it needs to be a lot more in depth. There needs to be a lot more numbers. There needs to be a lot more solid information that's conveyed to the people so that they know exactly what it is that they're going to pay with a stop. Because we're not a blank check. I know I'm not a blank check. You can't write one and say, we'll just, we'll fix it afterwards. No, it has to be solid. I can't go and build a house and go, I think it might cost this, but it might cost more, but it'll be okay. I'll figure it out. I don't have a printing press downstairs, and I don't believe any of you do either. So that's my opinion, and take it as you wish, but, and this is 100% off the cuff. I didn't know I was speaking about this. So in my opinion, it needs to be a lot more detailed in order for me to be able to jump on board. And I won't do anything with a little bit of cloudy or a little bit of fuzzy in the end. I can't. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, Vice President Samuel. Samantha?
Sure. The repairs that are needed at the school are not debatable. They're in need. And you said, President Truman, you said it was debatable in that article you got quoted in. And here we have an opportunity to not only fix those repairs, but bring our classrooms to the current standards of teaching at the same cost. It will raise taxes slowly over time, over the course of a few years, depending on when that money's borrowed. But in the end, we will not be paralyzed. especially considering that option A has the same bottom line number as the options you like, options B and option C. I call it the do nothing option, option C. You've claimed multiple times publicly, President Trimmer, that the DPW building's failing. Tonight you called it abysmal, and that's just false. It's structurally sound and needs nothing more than window air units to be updated to something more energy efficient, which could be upgraded through an energy efficiency grant. You've also criticized.
Excuse me, Mr.
Point of order,
President, point of order, you know, this isn't about you
Apparently it is, so I will.
Answer the false information you've been giving. You've criticized the police building for being an old credit union. I think that's a great way to reuse something. The building needs no major repairs. It has some concerns, including flooding, which are being addressed through the COPS grants and in our CIP. But hypothetically, if there was an opportunity to demolish the police station and replace it with a 76 to 81-ish% reimbursable bond, hypothetically, don't you think that avenue should be considered? Like, just consider it. Would you still choose the Band-Aid fixes if it's the same bottom line, if it was our police station here? So no, the town isn't paralyzed, and that statement to me is just a fear tactic. Another fear tactic is option
Can I
A.
respond to that?
I'm going to finish because everyone else was able to finish.
Well, the others didn't, that, so.
Another fear tactic is that option A will bring us to 90% of our taxes going to the school from 80% where we're currently at. And I still fail to see where you're getting with that at that, because we'll have a 0.65 increase this school side, which would bring us as Richmond, not talking for other towns, to 12.458. And if the municipal side stays at 2.52, the total would be 1541. So the school portion would increase to 80.84. So I'm still failing to see where that number is coming from. And I just think that we have the opportunity to plan thoughtfully, and this attempt to throw that out the window without really considering it, all the benefits, is just not where we need to be. What we need to be doing is asking ourselves, what does Chariho need to fix the situation we're in? And what's the most fiscally responsible path? We have options laid out by the school district, and we'll have the chance to vote on that. We will, but not today. I don't think we should today, because there's no motion on the floor, but if the resolution goes forward, it doesn't matter. The vote doesn't matter, the resolution doesn't matter. It's up to the voters to approve or deny on or before May 7th. That's 3 months from now. And as counselors or council president, we have no further or better or different say than any other registered voter. So I think that bringing a resolution like this to the table is unnecessary, unproductive. There's no reason to lock your vote in now. But we do have the responsibility to be factual in our statements. So if you put up the resolution, I'll probably be the only one voting against it, and I'm comfortable with that. But it's not because I don't support the options, but it's because I support what the school committee has been doing. I support the way they've been working together and collaborating, and as a team with our administration and our other staff members. And I support them for providing us with factual information, so that way we can all be clear, because we don't have to vote until May 7th. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colasanti.
Talking about factual information. I have talked to multiple mayors, multiple corporations doing the building in these respective towns. I talked to project managers. So my broad exposure to this is pretty vast. And that's what makes my mind up as to what I see what other towns and districts have been put through. Just Cranston, the elementary school, the architects and the engineers needed 1 full year extra to get all the work done for that new school. They decided to start building that new school before they were done. So then what ended up happening is, on a daily basis, they had work orders that were being submitted. And that's why that school is $30–40 million over budget. You talk to Gilbane, steel studs jumped from $3 and change to $8 and change. I talked with them. If there are 3 to 4 school districts building at the same time, there is no way that there's going to be enough labor That's gonna drive up the cost of materials because of supply and demand. You're putting a pressure on the supply chain. And that's gonna raise the prices, and on top of that, there's a good chance that the school system that signed the paperwork out of four, say for instance, the third and fourth, they're not gonna get the materials. So when you look at the state, and the state says that the reimbursement, you have 5 years to finish your project. Everybody, we're all adults here, we've built enough with the state. The state can change their mind whenever they want. The legislative body and the General Assembly make the laws, and they can change the laws whenever they want. So with that being said, they said, well, we could give you an extension. Talking with Rye, the extension is 6 months. But if your project is a year and a half, 2 years out, what good is that 6 months gonna be? And we're gonna lose, all right, the incentives. 5%, 5%. It doesn't make sense. Talking to Newport with Rogers, with the high school, they talk about value engineering. What ends up with value engineering is when they start running out of money, they either value engineering means they're gonna put in cheaper materials, or they're not gonna do it at all. They don't have a track. They propose to have a track for the high school. There is no track. They couldn't afford it. Then you talk about the environmental issues. Rhode Island has a high arsenic level in their soil. There's a pile of soil sitting near the high school that either one is going to have to be taken away at a very exorbitant cost, or they have the option of reusing it, which they didn't do. So they had to bring in all the fill for the new school. That school is about $30–40 million over budget. So they've gone back to the taxpayers and they've used their surplus fund, their fund balance of $7 million. They go $7 million in their fund balance, and that's only the tip of the iceberg, to which still has to be paid at the end. So when I talk to, like I said, multiple mayors, multiple project managers, and it's getting firsthand accounts as to what it's like with these projects around the state. President Trimmer listed just a few of them, and these aren't even the ones that have started yet. Do you think they're going to be any better off? Do you think that they've actually learned anything, all right, by pushing like Ms. Picard is? In the private sector, we would never, ever dream of doing a $150 million project within 6 months. Ludicrous. Ludicrous. You will not have one business that will ever do that. And that $150 million, when I sat down with Mayor Lombardi from North Providence, sharp guy, really a sharp guy. He caught them. It went from 150 million down to 100 million, basically. Okay, it went from 3 schools to 2 schools. And being a good businessman, he goes, you know something, the space going up is cheaper than going out. So they're doing 2 floors in one of the schools. He said to me, after discussing with me for a little bit, you know what Mayor Lombardi said to me? You don't have the tax base down there, Mike. You guys are in big trouble down there. And that includes Hopkinton too. We don't have the tax base. It's all going to come off the backs of the taxpayers. Now, looking at what's happened around the state, I crunched some numbers. Gina said it would be an average of about $270 increase just for the school in your tax bill. That doesn't include the municipal increase that year or the school increase that year.
In the budget.
The budget, right. So I crunched some numbers. Actually looking at what the scenarios have been in these other towns, and it's not going to get any better. It could get worse. She says 270. My prediction is anywhere from $350 to $450 for the average house in this town. Now, I had a conversation with 2 people. One lives in a nice development. He said, I like nice things. We go on vacation a lot. He basically was saying he can afford the new schools for his kids. Then there's a gentleman that lives outside the development. That lives downstream. And he said, I can't afford this. I'm 68 years old. And I still have to work like I did when I was 40 to pay my taxes. So it's nice that the guy in the nice development can afford it, but what kind of compassion does he have for his neighbor that can't? That's what we're losing sight of. And it's my job, first and foremost, to protect the taxpayer, the ones that can least afford it. And in doing so, the one that can most afford it, if I do save you some tax dollars, guess what? Then maybe he can go on an extra vacation, the money I saved him too. So it's a win-win.
So Helen?
So the amount of money that is being proposed for the bond is $150 million. But 20 million is to go for the Charahoe, the main campus. So that leaves $130 million for 3 schools. I do not think it is possible to demolish 3 schools and build 3 new schools for $130 million. That would allow $43,363,548 million for each of the 3 schools. None of the school systems in Rhode Island who have done new construction in the last 2 years have been able to come in at that number. North Providence was able to build 2 schools for $125 million, which is $62,500,000. And they were supposed to have 3 schools. So they had to cut out a school to keep it at $125 million. So we're going to do 3 schools for 130. So what town is not going to get a new school? So in Johnston, the amount of cost overrun for 1 elementary school was $10,280,832. Overall in Johnston, the school bond was $50 million short of what it actually cost them. In Cranston, the Gladstone Elementary School was supposed to cost $57 million, but it came in costing $83 million. And we plan to pay $43 million per school. Nota Massey in Cranston says that building costs are up 30 to 40%. So the last time I checked, Rogers High School in Newport is more than $25 million over budget. It's when you catch the news. When I first looked, it said it was 18 million over budget, and then I read it was 25 over budget, and now Mike has a higher number. I'm aware that in the past, some school building projects came in on budget, but I do not know of even one that came in on budget recently. Given all the variables that work, so everybody knows, I will go through those things. It's not a realistic number. The 3 new schools which have been proposed are almost identical. If you went to the school committee, the pictures showed them on the lots. So the cost for each one of them is close to equal. Yet Charlestown taxpayers would only have to pay 25% of the cost, while taxpayers of Richmond and Hopkinton would pay 75% of the cost. This is not a fair distribution of expense. The tax burden should be equally shared by all the residents of our regional school district if we are truly a regional school district. So there was an attachment from Sylvia Thompson, who is on the Charahoe District Finance member. And she said, if you lived in a house that was valued at $400,000, in Charlestown, your school tax, if you build a school, would be an extra $1,080. In Richmond, it would be $4,723, and in Hopkinton, $4,632. That's a little unfair. For the same exact school. let's see. So I see that it is costing us $400,000 to get the plans for the proposed school. The overall plans have already been established and will only need adjustments for each local school. Why should we have to pay that much money for a cookie cutter school that is being built around the state, allowing mostly for aesthetic differences on the outside? I would rather spend the money on focused renovations at our elementary schools, including the documents related to the cost for renovations to the 3 elementary schools included much more than making those schools safe, warm, and dry. The paperwork said that the renovations would make those schools state-of-the-art schools, including architectural soundness and effectiveness, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, acoustics, hazardous materials, and technology infrastructure. The people who estimated the cost of renovations, I believe they really overestimated what it would cost for the renovations. And I'll just give you one example. They said it would cost $759,000 to renovate the restrooms at Richmond Elementary School. That seems like an unreasonable figure. So when we're looking, if we do renovations, if we're looking for someone to give us an estimate, I would say we should use a different company.
When they were gonna redo the bathroom, it was gonna look like Trump Tower.
Also, the evaluators who looked at the school said that the Ashaway Elementary School needed a larger library. One of the teachers at that school said that their library was more than adequate in size. So, and how much are we using our libraries these days? People are doing their research on their computers. I mean, even if you look at the Charahoe Library, that's a big room. It's mostly not used. Well, many towns in Rhode Island decided to renovate and not replace. Some towns did both. So we would not be making a bad decision by not building new. I'll just give you a partial list from the RIDE website. Bristol Warren, they did have a new high school, they renovated the other schools. Burrville repaired and renovated the HVAC, roof, gym floor, windows, and ADA parking. Cumberland did a mixture of renovate and new. Coventry repaired and renovate all schools. Jamestown repair and renovate 2 elementary schools, security and ventilation. Lincoln renovate 4 elementary schools with a new gym and STEM classroom and electrical upgrade. Pawtucket is getting a new high school. South Kingstown, a new high school, renovate the elementary and the hazard building. Tiverton, renovations and repairs. Also, I do not want to minimize the stress on the children, the teachers, and all the other staff that will happen as everyone keeps shifting from one location to another over a period of 5 years. As a side note, RIDE takes pride in pointing out that they have created 28,000 construction jobs in Rhode Island as a result of their building projects. I do not think that providing work for others is the responsibility of RIDE, except as they support education that would make children prepared for the work world. So I would vote repair, renovate, not new.
Okay. That being said, I'd like a short, not an all-nighter, public commentary. And what I'm hoping is each person who comes up offers something new. So if you are about to go up and say we don't care about the kids because we're not building new schools, and somebody says that before you, if we could say something else or what have you, that would be great. And Jessica's arm was up first,
Mr.
so
President, I know that's your wish, but the public came here to speak. Let the
Right.
public speak. There's no formal restriction on what you
I'm
want
not
to say.
putting a formal
Okay, I'm just
restriction on,
clarifying.
it's a request.
Thank you.
It's a request to just
Thank you.
not pound the subject to death. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
So if you could introduce yourself and where you're from.
Hi, Jessica Purcell.
Richmond. I'm also a member of the Chariho School Committee, but I speak on behalf of myself tonight. If there's one thing I'd like to express tonight, it'd be this. Our public schools are vitally important to the health of our community. Families support the local economy. Strong schools keep property values competitive with the market. And most importantly, the benefits of education have a positive impact on individuals and our society as a whole. There are close to 400 kids in Richmond that go to the elementary school across the street. There are even more in the preschool, the middle school, the high school, the Alternative Learning Academy, and Chariho Tech that represent this generation of students. Our successful and well-managed school system brings new people to this area and brings back Chariho alumni to raise their families. This opportunity to receive one of the highest reimbursement rates in the state is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to thoughtfully and carefully plan for the short and long-term future of Chariho. We need solutions that improve efficiency and resiliency of resources across our elementary schools that will also save money. To not do so would be a dereliction of my duty as a parent, a school committee member, and an engaged voter in this town who values public education. I see this bond as a chance to make a wise and bold investment today that will build the Richmond of tomorrow. That doesn't mean I don't understand your concerns. That doesn't mean I don't share them. I appreciate questions. I think that everyone should be able to do that. But I respectfully ask you not to move forward with this opposition. Why back yourself into a corner now when you don't have to? If you oppose stage 2, how can you be trusted if this bond passes and you have to appoint people to be on the building committee that will oversee the design and construction? Just like the school budget, this proposal is not a blank check. The district has provided fiscal data and analysis along with an in-depth stage 2 application that requires extensive documentation and evaluation. Mr. Trimmer, I don't want to see you make the same mistake you've made before, which is taking bets against the will of the voters. You are welcome to your own personal opinion, even if that means we disagree. But making a resolution like this, you are overstepping your purview. The town council has many responsibilities that I'd like to see you focus on. Sustainable growth of a diverse housing stock that includes options for seniors on fixed incomes, efforts to revitalize Main Street, or appointing volunteers to boards and commissions like you do at every meeting. It's a duty that is important that you do. Instead, we're here to discuss your opposition to an application that is due on February 15th that does not require your approval. That doesn't mean you won't have a chance to vote. The Chariho Act does not require a majority vote in each town for this bond to pass, but that is an amendment to the bond legislation that I supported. If we're going to solve one of the biggest problems of our regional school district with large investments of time, money, and planning, it makes sense to do it with the approval of voters from each town. In 2018, 62.6% of voters in Richmond approved a statewide construction bond, and we owe it to them to pursue this opportunity. On May 7th, voters will decide if we move forward with a long-term solution to the physical and financial challenge of aging infrastructures in our elementary schools, which range from 75 to 90 years old. That's my prepared statement. If possible, could I answer a couple of I just took notes as folks were talking. One thing is that the bond legislation is for $150 million only. We couldn't increase that bond, anything like that. It's not possible for that to happen. Also, do you think the cost of materials will get better if we wait? They're only going to go up. If they're going up now, they're only going to go. I think right now at this point, we're at a better place than we were when this conversation was going on in 2021, when we were in the middle of COVID. The cookie cutter comment's not true. That's a preliminary plan. The building committee would oversee the actual architecture. The schools that you mentioned that went overboard, North Providence, those schools are bigger. Johnston Elementary School is the biggest elementary school in the state. Cranston, the 57, that's also bigger schools. It's different. These schools house about 400 kids. They're smaller than a lot of the schools that you mentioned, just to say. Renovation's not on the table. With this stage 2 is for building new schools. It's not for renovation. It would be for repairs. And the cost for materials for repairs is the same as the cost for materials for new construction. And there's more than one bathroom at Richmond. There's bathrooms in every kindergarten classroom. There's bathrooms on the first and the second floor, and there's bathrooms for teachers. So if that price surprises you, you might just not understand how many bathrooms there are in that school. Then there was one more thing I wanted to say, which is if safe, warm, and dry is good enough for you, I have a chicken coop in my backyard you might want to look at. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
John DeSalvo from Richmond. I want to thank you for your discourse on Bidenomics, but we all know how that works when we go to the grocery store or the gas station. Okay, and I disagree with you because things might get better, but we gotta wait till November to find out. The other thing is, we had a gentleman in here who had 6.5 feet of water in his basement about an hour ago. And he didn't want to hear, we'll buy your house. We'll buy it up front. You don't worry about anything. Here's some money and you can move on, because he loved Richmond. He loved living here. Okay, we're getting flooded right now, but it's not with water, it's by taxes. And I'm trying to tread water. I'm trying to keep my nose above it while I'm paddling. I'm 66.5 in June. I'm gonna collect my full retirement wage, Social Security in June. I'm living on a fixed income now. How am I gonna incur this? I mean, these people, they build their empires on the backs of the taxpayer. And it's sickening. I don't want to move out of this town. It took me like 20 years of looking for houses for my wife, and I finally agreed on one. And we moved here. And I want to thank you for your stance on this whole thing and leading the charge on it. Don't give up on us. Don't give up on the taxpayer, because we're the grassroots. We're the ones who are going to be here when all the fluff is gone. We're here. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. There was a gentleman in the very back, or I think a lady in the very back, who I caught her arm before, so I just.
Good evening, Karen Reynolds, Richmond resident, taxpayer, school committee member. I'm here this evening. I speak on my own behalf. Mark, thank you for being here. I'm sure there's someplace else you would like to be this evening, so I do thank you. And I am sorry for what you're going through. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Superintendent Gina Picard, Finance Director Ned Draper, and Director of Buildings and Grounds Jason Sullivan, as well as my fellow school committee members that have attended the meetings to present the proposed building project to the member towns. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Pat, Jess. I also want to thank all the community members that have attended or watched the many meetings and asked numerous questions, both in person and digitally, on the district back page. Superintendent Picard attended a meeting here recently to present the district stage 2 application. She made it very clear that the stage 2 application is a required process that we must go through. And as part of that process, the elementary building project was an opportunity the towns will likely never see again. Therefore, she was obligated to bring the proposal to the voters for the community. I appreciate, truly, I appreciate the thoughtful questions that Councillor Sheehan and Asani asked during that presentation. Councillor Wilcox, you've reached out numerous times and have asked great clarifying questions. Councillor Colsante, you asked numerous questions and made just as many statements that made it clear your position on this topic. I do, however, want to thank you for the time that you have spent on researching this proposal and meeting the individuals from other communities to discuss their experiences. I do find it interesting that at the same time Mayor Lombardi was warning you of the concerns we might encounter, he and North Providence were taking advantage of the higher state reimbursement for school construction that is being offered to improve his own community. I believe that Charahoe should also take advantage of this opportunity to improve our facilities. President Trimmer, you too have made it quite clear how you feel about this proposal as well. But I was and am dismayed by the comment you made at the end of the presentation. You stated, I quote, "I don't know enough about it to make a final decision."
You made numerous negative statements about this proposal and then admitted to not knowing enough about it. I find that disappointing, to say the least. I'm being optimistic about this proposal and sincerely trust the voters of this community to make a fully informed decision on May 7th. Mr. Trimmer, I know you're a car guy, so I did a little research. And the most popular Ford car in 1935, the year Richmond School was built, was the Ford Deluxe Touring Sedan. It's a smart looking car that cost $655. The next model down was a coupe that had a rumble seat for $595. Having slightly older parents, I know what a rumble seat is. While these are great cars, and I'm sure a few remain, I don't see them around. And if I do, it's usually on a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon on their way to a car show. In 1936, the year after Richmond Elementary School opened, the superintendent of schools, O.R. McCoy, wrote in the school summary, quote, "It's difficult to enumerate all the different ways in which the new building has contributed to the improvement of the instruction, the development of personality, and the strengthening of character among the pupils. Since January, all classes in the school have carried on in well-lighted, ventilated rooms, well-equipped and comfortable. The result has been a noticeable improvement in the quality and the amount of work accomplished in each grade. It's again," oh, that's close quote, sorry. "It is again time, almost 90 years later, to provide modern facilities for our 21st century learners, to see them in a setting where they can thrive and learn and become the best they can be. Our children and our community should take advantage of this unique opportunity of enhanced state funding. These are our state tax dollars going to other places, and we should be bringing them back to Charahoe. And just slightly, Mrs. Shan, I'm sure my librarian at the school that I work at would love to hear that nobody uses the library because she is a very busy woman."
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Robar.
Thank you, President, and thank you for your time that you took, at least that amount of time to survey the building before you made your assessment of what should be done. Thank you, Mike, for all your research and all the other members that put in some time doing the same. As a general contractor, if I took off my shoes, I don't think I could count all the schools that I worked on here in the state of Rhode Island. The difference is, and it was just noted about this school having been built in 1935, we had some people that made smart decisions, our forefathers, and they didn't use asphalt roofing. There's one roof that hasn't been done over there, and it's still slate. So, and we're gonna get estimates from builders today. Everybody's gonna wanna cut corners. So if you think that those numbers, that there's any truth to those numbers that you've got, you're not sitting down with the final number yet. If you wanna build something of good quality. Right, I've also worked, there's a lot of buildings, municipal buildings and so forth that I've worked in, even the Charahoe area. For instance, the Hopkinen Police Station, which was over $2.1 million back in, trying to figure out what year we did that project. I think it was 95 or 6. They're replacing the roof on that building already because they used asphalt. And already, and I'm talking maybe 5 years ago. And if I hadn't spoke to people in the department over there, they didn't know, the shingles didn't even last the warranty period. So I said, there's a possibility, at least you could get free materials before you start the renovation. I worked on a elevator addition on Central Baptist Church in Westville. I had the good fortune of meeting a guy there by the name of Mike, it might have been something as simple as Smith. I know he's associated with the Smith Babcock House, but he was an old stone cutter. And he says, "Mr. Robar, we're not going to do concrete steps on this because the next generation is going to thank us if we use granite." So if we don't have that thought in mind and leave the tax burden on our children,
I want to go back to a school budget meeting at the Charahoe School some years ago, when a gentleman was proposed to ask for $250,000 for the sports complex over there. My question was, is things weren't prepared, they just come up with a number. What are we spending the money on? I was told that I hate kids, because I even questioned the amount of money being spent. I said, I don't hate kids. I've got 3 kids of my own in this school system. I just want to know, are we getting $100,000 worth of grass seed and $50,000 worth of basketballs? Or what is it we're going to get for our money? Somebody commented that it wasn't going to amount to more than the Big Mac and an order of fries in my tax bill. I said, listen, I don't care if the superintendent is Ronald McDonald. I would rather put my money together with this gentleman over here. We'll get a side of beef and a bushel of potatoes. Not only will we spend our money better, but we'll eat better too. So before we burden another generation by making a foolish decision, if somebody came into your house, Mr. Wilcox, the plumber come in and said, because you wanted to fix the faucet and he condemned your house, what would you think? I think you'd probably throw him out. Okay? If he came in and you blew a fuse, he says, yeah, condemn your house. I think you throw him out. All right, so, and, what is the length of this bond? How far out are we looking? Because I'll be guarantee you, not included in the cost, is gonna be the cost of maintenance repairs before you get that far. All right, I'm speaking as a general contractor. And believe me, it's cheaper to remodel. The problem is, nobody fixes their house till it's time to sell. Then they do a new roof, throw a coat of paint, and they get gone before they get another tax bill. And, I'm on a fixed income myself. So I'm concerned, my kids are out of school, and 80 cents of my tax dollars still go into schools, and I don't have any kids in school here. So I think, you've done the right proposal, President Trimmer. Mike, good information, and thank you, Helen, for your work too. Thank you.
Sir.
Ken Mitchell, in the early 80s, we had NGT management come in. And the first thing they said, we should have an equalizing taxing district. Now, I'm asking the school committee and the town council to get together with Hopkinton and the school committee over there and get in on this bond issue that we want equalizing taxing district. Before we go any further, get the tax situation straightened out. We can't keep living the way it is now, with 2 towns hurting and the other one floating free.
I'd like to maybe take 2 more people and then, yeah.
Janet Taft, Richmond. I am an elderly person. I had been working up to a year ago when I retired. Up to that point, and I just read in online today that the median income of Richmond in 2021 was $53,000. Well, I thought I was doing really good. I was doing $51,000 a year as a single person owning my own first home. And I still am very proud of what I had done. Now I'm retired, things are a little different. I am making less, than median income. And when I turned 65, even though I was still working, I'm going to plan for my future, similar to Richard Nassany. I really appreciated your comments about how can you build something when you don't know the cost of it. So I looked at my life and I made a 10-year plan. Worst case scenario, I'll go live with one of my kids, and lucky for me, they were fighting over me. So, how good can you have it? Things
Good.
maybe isn't that bad. But I want to be independent. I don't want to live with my kids, and they really don't want me, because it'll be a pain in their side, as well as they me. I want to stay where I am. 12 years ago, when I moved into Richmond, I chose Richmond, similar to the gentleman that spoke. It was a place that, and I live right off Main Street, and at 8 o'clock, even during the week, during the summer, there's not a peep. Not a peep. This town rolls up the carpets. Their business is open. I don't know who goes there, but it's so cool. And that's why I moved here, and I truly am enjoying it. But I am on the next part of my life where, and I don't have children in the school system. I mean, I went to EWG, my kids, but I understand the process of taxes and that we all have to pay for our kids. But I went to the library meeting last week, and it was mentioned about, well, geez, why are they closing an award-winning school with an award-winning teacher? And I was told that it doesn't matter where the teacher is, it's the system that makes them good. So they didn't say school makes them good. They didn't say putting up a brand new shiny school is going to make that teacher any darn better. They were good already, and they were gifted. Maybe we have to get rid of some teachers and get more quality teachers in, just saying. But it's not the school, it's the teachers. And you can't start building a project when you don't have all the numbers. I mean, I can't even build a coop in my backyard without knowing how much is it going to cost. If you delay it 6 months, it's going to double all the wood and whatever you need. So these young people who are saying, oh yeah, we're going to get 3 schools with 150 million are dreaming. They are dreaming. And they got to get hit over the head with a 2x4 with reality. And it's not reality. Maybe your parents protected you from reality your whole life. But reality is it's not going to happen. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take one more person, sir.
Mr. President, I would just like to go on the record saying that I object to stifling voices. If you let one person speak, you gotta let everybody speak at least once.
Okay, well, if there are other people who would like to speak after you, raise your hands high so I can see them. 1, 2, 3. Anybody online?
No.
Okay, I'll just continue, and this is important enough. Sir.
Hi, Jeff Newell from Richmond. I've heard a lot of people when they discuss this talking about the next 5 years. I did a lot of study and I tried to talk about it before. I've looked at what would happen 5 to 10 and even farther out. And there are a few things that are missing to make this a little bit more attractive. We're consolidating schools. This is necessary because, as some have pointed out, we have a declining student population. So this is going to breed efficiency that we're going to see later, and will make the taxes less than what they are for that first 5 years, especially because there's still some, debt on the books for Charahoe out until 2031. Right now, the elementary schools cost about $1 million a year to run. So in 5 years after they're all built, I would think that we'd see a great deal of savings there. The general maintenance fund at Charahoe is about $550,000. That's for all 8 buildings. So now you're losing 1 building, plus the reduction in the amount of maintenance required at the elementary school. Let's say it's just half even. I mean, Hope Valley costs $3 a square foot to maintain per year. The high school costs $1.11 per foot. And it's what, 35 years old? So if we have a new building, we may be looking at $1 a foot. And I believe Richmond's $1.50 a square foot, and Ashway's like $2 a square foot. So we're seeing like a reduction in operating cost. I understand, yes, it's going to take a lot to get there. But if we're looking at our tax picture 5 to 10 years out, it looks a lot better with these kind of savings. And the only way we're going to get it is by investing in our school system and not just doing warm, safe, and dry, because it's my understanding they're just Band-Aids. It's the minimum that is required to keep it level, not to improve anything. So you're not going to get any energy savings. You're not going to get any power, transportation savings. And the one thing that nobody's talked about that's going to happen because of this reorganization and more efficient school buildings with larger classes is we're going to have staff reductions. So you're going to lose right off the bat principal, librarian. You're going to lose teachers, and they're going to be the junior teachers. That's okay though, because the taxes will be less after we do all this. The other thing is if we deny this now and we kick the can down the road, right? So let's say what's going to happen in 6 years if we're right at the back of the same place, and we're going to have to build new then, like we're going to be mandated to, right? It's a state mandate to provide public education. So we're looking at now $166 million for the same buildings 6 years down the road. If we think of 2% inflation, it's just going to keep going up. So it's going to be more expensive then. Plus, in the meantime, we're going to have paid for a $30 million bond. I've heard a lot of people at the beginning of the meeting talk about how they want more state funding for mandates. This is a mandate to provide education. The state's providing more funding, and now we're saying no because it may not work out. We're not even going to try. I mean, that 10% is $15 million. We're going to get, maybe 15 to 20 additional. So what's that? 22.5 million to $30 million extra money on top of the 61% that they're already offering. We beg them for more money. We finally get it. Now we're going to say no. And what does it say about ourselves for people that want to come here and invest in our community when we won't advocate for a solid investment in ourselves with new schools? I mean, I sit on the Tax Assessment Board of Review. I have a solid understanding of the tax base and the mill rate. I understand that what the school has said with the $265 on average for like a $500,000 home for the tax increase per year. But I think you're going to see more along the lines of 5 to 10 years out, that number being more like 150, 110, depending on all the details. Are there any financial questions about the future that maybe we could talk about instead of just this immediate 5-year?
I have a question. I don't want to turn this into a lengthy thing, but I do have a question. Or I have a statement. I've been led to believe by several people who have explained this all to me as best as my limited knowledge and skills can understand, that the cost of these new schools does not include the cost of a water system upgrade or a septic system upgrade that's going to be required, along with aquifer protection inspections and
EPA gets involved.
yeah, none of that is included in the $150 million, and that could add millions more to each school.
So that could or could not be true. We don't know, which I think kind of brings to the point. You guys can sit here and oppose this. We all get it, right? But the final number hasn't come out yet. I understand there are concerns about over budgeting, new systems and things like that, but we don't exactly know the final number. And again, right, your concerns that you just listed, they're not going away. So if we kick the can down the road 5 more years, the inflation monster is going to grab us all. I mean, I hope that the Fed hits the 2% target that they want, but 5 years from now, you're just looking at your concern being even more expensive. And but at the same time, we're back to 61% reimbursement.
Mr. President, just real quick on the EPA. Now, when Gina Picard came here with Ned Draper and the gentleman from Rye, I did mention that the EPA, when you take federal monies, which there are federal monies involved, that, you know, we have this nice aquifer protection overlay district. When you deal with that, now the EPA gets involved. Gina, I noted, I gestured over to Ned, is that true? Now, that was a question and a statement I posed to them to make them aware of it. They haven't gotten back and either disqualified it or agreed with it. So now that tells me one of two things. They did look into it and there could be a potential big problem. Because when you deal with the EPA, so now I have heard those figures can jump into the millions. All right, when you start getting involved with the EPA over an aquifer, and we've done such a great job of, you know, that inclusivity of our aquifer protection overlay district. We got our school right here. That's right on top of it. And they haven't come back with an answer. And that was 4 weeks ago?
And I get it,
Yeah.
right? Like, again, another concern, but what if, I mean, according to the Aquifer Overlay Protection Ordinance, right? Like you got that limited, or instead of doing the whole lot, having one problem, it's now you're able to move the building away from that, maybe that portion that has the problem. So then they could engineer that into the new design, because it's not exactly 100%. I mean, they gave a picture of where the building might be, but you have the whole area of land and they may be able to move it so it doesn't require this extensive study. But again, if you don't do this now, if we kick the can down the road till later, that problem is still there. You're going to need to build a new school later, and it's going to cost more still, and we're not going to get the reimbursement. So, I mean, is it worth $30 million to wait to do this?
Well, excuse me, Mr. President, again, you know, going.
I don't want to go
Yes.
on and on and on.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I knew Mrs. Galasante.
Kathleen Colasanti from Richmond, and again, school committee member that is speaking for herself. Yes, this was first presented to the school committee as Karen Reynolds stated, as an option, and it's something that we had to consider. The state mandated that we consider new construction to even submit our capital improvement plan. So we had to consider, and that's how it was presented to the school committee. This is something for you to consider. However, we've been getting a hard sell from the get-go. Hey, it hasn't been put out like, well, here's one scenario, here's another scenario. We've been getting a hard sell and a fast hard sell, okay, since it first came out of the gate. However, I've kept an open mind, and certainly the way it was presented, the selling point was that we are going to be able to get 3 brand new elementary schools that'll be no more expensive than renovations. Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'm open-minded. I'm going to listen. But as I listened, I had questions. And from the very beginning, the very first meeting we had, December 12th with Mario Camino, I posed those questions to him. I said, we have inflation costs. I'm not going to be redundant. You know, Mr. Massani, Mr. Trimmer, Mr. Colasanti, Mr. Sheehan, you all did a marvelous job underscoring issues that I won't reiterate. I'll just make note of them. Yes, inflation is a problem. Yes, labor costs are a problem. But when we had a recent meeting, one thing that our superintendent told us was, oh, well, the Rogers School keeps coming up in Newport. The reason why that was a problem is because the state will not allow you to overbuild. And they were building that school for 800 kids instead of 600 kids. Now, I knew that was way over budget. That sounded odd to me. So I decided to contact the Newport school committee chair and spoke to her at length today. She threw out so many warnings, and then she got cut short. She said, I would love to talk to you more about this. And she said, but I have to be somewhere. But what she told me in a short period of time was very alarming. They had, first of all, that was not true. There was no issue with the number of children. Okay, we're given misinformation. What were their issues is yes, inflation. And we were told at a school committee meeting, inflation starting to level. So I posed that to her. Again, I'm making inquiries. I'm not going there with my mind made up. There's no point talking to people if your mind's made up. So I went there with inquiries. She said, inflation is still a big deal. Just this month, we got in quotes 40% over what our professional estimators predicted. Just this month, 40% over, okay? So much for inflation was leveling. Another thing that she told me was they are having huge environmental costs. She said, you don't know till you start building, all right, the Pandora's boxes that you might be opening up. My husband made reference to one of them, that there's so much arsenic in soil in Rhode Island. She made reference to other issues that are too detailed to get into, but they are having astronomical costs due to environmental issues that they could not have foreseen. She said people have said, like, couldn't you see this coming? She said there was no way to predict it until you start into the project. Value engineering has been made a big deal of, oh, no problem. If things start going over budget, we'll do value engineering, like it's this magical word. And I said, it seems to me, I posed it as a question, it seems to me, value engineering is just a fancy word, but we're gonna have to cut somewhere. She said, yes. And one of the ways that they cut is you use inferior products. And she said, we ran up against that where they proposed some inferior product, inferior materials. And she said, however, we visited East Providence School to learn from them. She said, we toured East Providence 5 times. And as a result of the information that we learned, some of the inferior products, materials that they wanted to use, we said no to because we realized that would be penny wise, pound foolish. Okay, and she also told me this is a huge thing that I brought up at the December 12th meeting to Mario Camino, and he did not disagree. He actually admitted it was a problem. With so many projects being scheduled to occur concurrently, all right, you are going to not even have enough labor to complete your projects. I did not say it to her when I was on the phone with her today. She brought it up. She said that our project manager was talking to Mario Carino, and they were saying, this is going to be a big problem. You are not even going to have enough labor to complete these projects. And she said, you mentioned to me, you have to build 3 elementary schools in 5 years. Good luck with that. 3 elementary schools in 5 years when you have a shortage of labor, okay? Because everybody's competing for that 5-year deadline. We tried to do something as a school committee to mitigate that, but we haven't come up with any way to mitigate that 5-year. The best we've heard is perhaps we'll get 6 months extra. Well, on a big project building 3 elementary schools, I'm sure 6 months is gonna really do the trick. Okay, and then like I said, between inflation, labor costs, everybody competing for the 5-year deadline, environmental projects, everything comes down to a risk versus benefit analysis. And I would say it is very clearly way too great a risk for a community that is already amongst the worst property tax burdens in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Someone else? Louise?
Good evening, members of the Richmond Town Council. I'm Louise Dinsmore, Richmond resident, president of the Charahoe Forgotten Taxpayers Political Action Committee. First, I want to thank Town Council for considering this particular resolution tonight. It takes a lot of political courage to put that on the agenda, and I appreciate your considering this proposal. I also want to recognize the members of the school committee who are here this evening, the 4 representatives from Richmond. You do not have an easy job. I don't envy you at all. And I know that you're all trying to make the best decisions for the taxpayers. For those of you who know me, I've been a vocal advocate and representative for the taxpayers for the last 2 years. One of the things that concerns me greatly is a comment that was made this evening by Mr. Noble. He said the final numbers haven't come out yet. I don't know about you, but when I go buy a car, they tell me what my car payment is going to be every month, so I can budget accordingly. I don't believe that it's fiscally responsible for any community to move forward if they don't have any idea what the burden is going to be on the taxpayers. Mr. Trimmer, President Trimmer, you said earlier, you referenced not only will this particular proposal potentially put a burden on the taxpayers annually of around $265, $270 a year. That's just for this particular bond. What happens when the town budget goes up every year? School budget goes up almost every year. We have to pay interest back on these bonds. What is our tax burden going to be for the residents of Richmond? When you go get a mortgage, you get a truth in lending statement. You know exactly what you're going to pay back in your mortgage and interest over a period of 30 years, if that's your payment period. So I've asked for a truth in spending statement. Give us a truth in spending statement for this project. Nobody knows what the final number is going to be. I have been a resident of Richmond with my husband for 7 years. We're getting priced out of town. The reason why I'm the president of the Chariho of Forgotten Taxpayers is because I'm representing those people on a fixed income who have told us in front of the town hall, when we sat and stood out in front of the town hall on the school budget vote days and the town budget vote days, I cannot afford to live in Richmond much longer. You are elected officials. You were elected to represent the taxpayers. A lot of us are very scared that we are getting priced out of Richmond. Mr. Trimmer, other members of the Richmond Town Council, you know what's coming down the pipeline. Aren't there lawsuits pending against the town? What is going to be the financial liability of these lawsuits? We don't even know that yet. I want to be able to stay in Richmond for as long as possible. We bought our home as our forever home. I don't know if that's going to be a forever home much longer. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, sir.
I'll go last.
I saw a lady.
Yeah, that lady. The old one. Joan?
Joan.
He can go.
Bob Sayer, Richmond. Thank you, Mr. Trimmer, for bringing this on the schedule so that we can all get up here and talk about it. But I don't think that it is proper for the, you've all given your opinions as to how you're gonna vote, but it's up to all of the taxpayers to do the voting. I've worked on a lot of different jobs, trucking, construction, everything throughout my life. I'm one of those ones on a fixed income because I've retired. So my wife is retired now and everything else. We live in Richmond. Yeah, would I like to have lower taxes? Yeah, right? But we put our kids through the Chariho system here. When we moved here, my oldest went to Richmond Elementary, I think 3rd grade. My other one started at Richmond Elementary, went through the Chariho system, got a great education. And now my youngest son and his wife are both teachers at Chariho. And they are among the lower paid teachers in the state. They really are. So, I mean, all the cuts and people talking about cuts and everything else, it doesn't happen. But my main point here is this shouldn't be a resolution from the town council. You guys are no different than us. You're elected to stand there and sit there and make decisions and everything else. But you're no different than the rest of the thing. And using that as a piece to put a resolution, I don't think it's right. The last thing I'm gonna leave with is working on all these buildings and everything else and delivering products to all of these buildings. I delivered to every single one of the elementary schools construction project, when I was a truck driver. I delivered to all of them. I've been inside the schools and everything else. It costs a lot of money to maintain old buildings, very old buildings. And if these buildings, some of them are 80 and 90 years old, if something goes wrong with the boilers and all of that, more than likely there's asbestos. Now, we were talking about the cost of cleanups and everything else. That weighs heavy too. So everybody needs to wait and listen to all of the proposals, see what it is, make a determination on that. But I don't think it's right for the town council to put a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a statement. It's February 6th, and we're being expected, I believe, to vote on this on February 15th.
No, we're not. Mr. President, we're voting on this on May 7th.
Okay, I thought there was some deadline.
Different deadline, that's when that's when the school committee needs to put in the application,
Okay,
but we don't vote for it till later.
okay,
Mr. President, could I add one more piece?
sure.
If you go on the Rhode Island Department of Education's website, it says that it is required for the town council, any town, to approve building new schools. However, because we're a regional school, we lose the right. But the town, the Department of Education still would like us to, they'd like us to vote yes. But it's not that it's out of our purview, we lose that right because we're a regional school system. I don't think it's right that we lose our rights. But well, it's not because it's charitable, it's because it's a regional school.
It's in charitable.
Hey, whoa.
But see, so they still would like a resolution from us, but of course they'd like it to say yes. So
Okay,
not
so-
outside of our purview.
Sure.
Who's requesting the resolution because the agenda says it was President
I'm
Trump?
requesting the
There's nobody from
resolution.
Bride is.
And
On
here-
their website, look at their website.
It says they're asking for a resolution.
because the
Approval.
because the town council has been denied because of the Charahoe Act. The town council has been denied the opportunity to do their job regarding this, even though a decision to build new schools is going to heavily impact the town. We can debate over the amounts, but we can't debate over the facts that it's going to be a big nut to swallow. Whatever kind of analogy you want to use, three new schools is going to have 3 new schools, and we haven't, like I said, we haven't talked about demolishing the old schools. We haven't talked about the EPA work that needs to be done. We haven't talked about half of the expenses involved in this project haven't been discussed. We've been presented with a rosy, happy little picture that says, it's like the mechanic who comes and tells you, you know, if you want your car inspected this month, you need to have $3,500 worth of work done. So the lady at church comes to me and says, Mark, here's what they said. I take her car and $180 later, she passes inspection. Besides the point, somebody used a car analogy earlier. I thought it was interesting. I am a car nut.
One last comment, Mr. President.
I just wanted to finish this thought. The thought that I wanted to finish, and Jessica, I did see you raise your hand, and I'm going to ask you to comment. Oh, you don't want
Yeah, no, you clarified.
to? Okay.
I'm all set, thank you.
I do not support option A, the new schools, as presented, and that's what my resolution is going to be. As presented, those are key words. And so my proposal, unless you
Yeah, one last quick comment, excuse me. In talking with the officials at Johnston City Hall, there's the Amazon facility that's being built there. In order for that Amazon facility to stay on target of their dates, Mr. Bezos pay $125 million more for that facility because he knew he'd have to pay more to get the help, the materials, and he could afford to do it. So even he understood building that Amazon facility. He spent $125 million more to get the people and to get the materials he needed to open that facility. Now, I posed that same question, that's right. And I posed that same question, all right, to the Richmond taxpayers of this town. Are you willing to take that chance of having to pay X amount of dollars more? Because that 150 million going by the other districts, you're looking at that 150 million ballooning to 180 to 190 million. And on top of that, what Gina never does is she never figures in what the bond interest is going to be on that. On top of that, it's never included. Think about that. So I stretch those out to a 4% bond. You're looking at $220 to $230 million.
Okay, so, I wanted to go to, Sam and then, Joan and then, Jeff.
That's all right.
I will be
Okay.
quick. I wanted to just say that I share a lot of the concerns that have been shared, not the bond rate, because we went over that with the road bond. But I do share a lot of the concerns when it comes to construction and costs and inflation and the work and, you know, talking to people who are in the field and everything like that. So I share those concerns, but I don't think that we should throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. And I did want to talk really quickly, and I'm not usually one to talk about myself up here because that's not what people elected me to do. But as people are looking at me and saying, she's young, she has kids, and, you know, putting me in that category. And I just want to say that, you know, I do struggle and I do have those things. And I am a younger mother. I became a parent at the age of 18 and I worked my butt off to afford the cheapest house I could possibly find in Exeter or Chariho. And so I hear you there. By the time these projects are completed, I will be joining the party of people who don't have kids in the district. And I'm not going to say, I don't care about the future generations or anything like that, but I will be a part of that group where I don't have kids in the district. So I just wanted to, since other people have brought up personal assumptions they've made about me, I just wanted to take a moment to clarify a few things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, we forgot about Joan. Hi, Joan.
It's not easy for another person to get up here.
I hear you.
My name's Joan Kemp. I live in Richmond. I agree with everything you said about opposing this time. Because there are soft costs, there's hard costs, there's overages, and you cannot determine what they are going to be because the cost of materials, the cost of product, getting labor. What about scheduling? You don't get people to work. The contractors are responsible for certain things at each stage of that construction. And if they have any hang-up or delays, we fall into that category where it's going to be overages and cost. And what happens if we don't meet those needs to get the construction done of those schools? What does the state do for us? They give us the 61%? Did they take it back? Do we lose it? What are the questions that we need to ask? What, Mr. Trivison? That's what we need to ask. Further questioning of what's going on. We need thorough prices, expenses, and I believe in repairs first, taking the steps to do what we need to do so that everyone is on the same page. Do the repairs, we hire the right people, we make sure it's quality products going into the schools, because that also affects price, cost, delivery. We're going to have problems with deliveries nationally. They're holding lots of carrier containers areas. You can't go into the South Sea. You can't go into United Emirates, Yemen. Those ships can't go in there and get oil. They're not going to be delivering stuff to us. So those costs are going to affect all of us. Any building company, whether it's schools, whether it's housing, anything. So that's all I have to say. I thank you for listening, taking the time to listen to me. You've always been very respectful, even though I may have a difference of opinion, and that's with everyone here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like, at this point, I'd like to hold any further public comment unless there's someone online who's been waiting patiently. And I'd like to make a closing statement and, just state what my resolution that I'd like to put up for a vote is. We've been denied the ability to have a vote that matters. So a resolution is basically a vote that doesn't matter, but at least for the record states our standpoint and our opinion. The way that this has all been presented is kind of the way my 16-year-old daughter came to me when she wanted me to buy her a car. It just sounded way too good to be true. And it didn't pan out. She ended up going through 3 cars in 3 years, totaling them. I'm not saying that the schools will be totaled, but what I'm saying is that the $150 million is absolutely, it's just a starting point. And the way this has all been presented is just a starting point. It kind of reminds me of the budget a few years ago that Nancy Pelosi presented, and she says, well, you've got to pass it first to find out everything that's in it. And we got walloped. So that being said, my resolution is that we as Richmond Town Council do not stand for option A as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion before we vote? How do you vote?
No.
You
A
said-
little louder?
Oh, sorry, no.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
Make that a little something.
well, I thank everybody for coming out. I thank everybody for being polite and listening and talking and giving everybody the respect that they deserve. And,
Mr. President,
yes.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
We haven't done.
Just that.
A motion of,
Procedural, so I'm withdrawing your. I'll withdraw my second.
putting the file, conditions, conditions, file conditions, all that.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
President, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.